The billionaire CEO sat in his wheelchair at the end of the marble hallway, watching employees rush past him without a glance. Since the accident, pity had replaced respect, and admiration had quietly turned into uncomfortable avoidance. At 35, he was the youngest CEO the company had ever had, once known for his relentless energy and commanding presence. Now, he was known for the soft hum of rubber wheels against polished floors. His name was Ethan Cole, and the building that once felt like his kingdom had begun to feel like a place he no longer belonged. The accident had happened 18 months earlier on a rain-slick highway after a late board meeting. The doctors called it a miracle that he survived. They also called it permanent when they spoke about his legs. Months of surgeries, rehabilitation centers, and the world's most expensive specialists brought no progress. Slowly, hope faded, replaced by routines designed around limitation. Ethan learned how to smile politely when doctors avoided eye contact. He learned how to thank people for encouragement that sounded more like condolences. Most of all, he learned how lonely power becomes when strength disappears. That evening, the building was nearly empty. The golden sunset reflected off glass walls as cleaning crews began their rounds. Ethan stayed late often, not because he had work, but because going home meant facing silence. As he stared down the hallway, lost in thought, the soft swish of a broom broke the quiet. A woman in a grey janitor's uniform moved steadily, methodical and unhurried. She looked about 30, her dark hair pulled back simply, her posture straight despite the long hours of labor. When she reached him, she stopped. She didn't rush past him like everyone else. She didn't pretend not to notice the wheelchair. She simply met his eyes, calm and direct, without pity. Then she smiled, not the polite corporate smile he was used to, but something warmer, steadier. "I'll help you walk," she said softly. For a moment, Ethan thought he had misheard her. Then the absurdity hit him. A janitor after hours, making a promise doctors couldn't keep. A bitter laugh escaped him before he could stop it. "That's a bold statement," he said, trying to mask the sting behind sarcasm. "Do you have a medical degree I should know about?" She didn't flinch. "No," she replied, "but I understand discipline and pain and patience." She leaned on her broom slightly. "Sometimes more than doctors do." Something in her voice made him pause. There was no desperation in it, no attempt to impress, just quiet certainty. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya," she said. "I'm 30. He nodded slowly. "Ethan, 35, and you're making promises you can't keep." "Maybe," Maya said. "But maybe you've stopped believing because everyone who tried before gave up when it got inconvenient." That struck deeper than he expected. He studied her face, looking for arrogance or foolish optimism, but found neither, just resolve. "Why would you want to help me?" he asked. She resumed sweeping. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything you worked for, and because I know your body listens when your mind hasn't surrendered." Over the next few days, Ethan found himself waiting for Maya's shift to pass his office. Their conversations were brief at first. She never asked for favors or spoke about his wealth. She asked about his routine, his pain, the exercises he hated most. Slowly, she suggested small changes, adjusting posture, breathing through discomfort instead of resisting it. Simple movements done repeatedly, painfully, persistently. He told himself it was harmless. What did he have to lose? Yet part of him resisted hope, afraid of disappointment. One evening, he finally asked her why she knew so much. Maya hesitated before answering. "I used to be a rehabilitation therapist," she said quietly. "I worked at a private clinic. We focused more on cost-cutting than care. When I reported it, I was pushed out. No references, no chances." She shrugged. "So I clean floors now." Ethan felt something shift inside him. "You could have sued." "I could have," she said, "but that would have taken years. I needed to survive." She looked at his legs, "And I never stop believing recovery is possible when someone refuses to quit." Against his better judgment, Ethan agreed to try. They started after hours in a small, unused conference room. No cameras, no witnesses, just effort. The first sessions were brutal. His muscles screamed in protest. Sweat soaked his shirt. More than once, frustration brought him close to tears. Each time, Maya remained steady, encouraging without forcing, firm without cruelty. Days turned into weeks. Progress was microscopic, almost invisible. But it was there. A muscle responding, a tremor of control. For the first time since the accident, Ethan felt something other than resignation. He felt purpose. He fell often. He failed constantly. And each time Maya helped him back up, never scolding, never praising excessively. Again, she would say, slowly, correctly. Late one night, as he stood supported by parallel bars, his legs shaking violently, Ethan whispered, "What if this is all for nothing?" Maya met his gaze. "Then you'll know you didn't quit on yourself." Months later, the impossible happened quietly. No applause, no cameras, just a man standing unsupported for 5 full seconds. Ethan laughed and cried at the same time, overwhelmed by disbelief. Maya stepped back, wiping her hands on her uniform as if she'd just finished cleaning another room. The next morning, the board gathered for a scheduled meeting. When the doors opened, Ethan walked in slowly, carefully, but on his own. Shock rippled through the room. No wheelchair, no explanation, just determination in every step. He didn't mention doctors. He didn't mention miracles. He told them about effort, about patience, and about someone who believed when belief was unfashionable. That afternoon, Maya was called to the executive floor for the first time. She stood nervously as Ethan extended a formal offer. Not charity, not gratitude, but respect. A position leading a new rehabilitation initiative funded by the company. Maya accepted without tears or speeches. She simply nodded. Sometimes change doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks in quietly, wearing work gloves, and waits for someone brave enough to listen. Days later, the janitor returned after hours, just as she had promised. The building had settled into its nighttime stillness, the kind where every sound echoed and time seemed to slow. Ethan waited in the small conference room, his jacket folded neatly on the table, his hands resting on the wheels of his chair. When Maya entered, she carried no equipment, no clipboard, no medical charts, only quiet focus. She greeted him with a nod, as if this were the most ordinary thing in the world. They began with movements so small they felt pointless, shifting weight, engaging muscles that had long gone dormant, holding positions that sent sharp reminders of pain through his legs. Ethan clenched his jaw, sweat beading at his temples. More than once his body shook violently, threatening to collapse. Every instinct told him to stop. Every memory of failure whispered that this would end the same way. Maya noticed everything. The moment his breathing changed, the instant fear replaced effort. She adjusted without raising her voice, reminding him to slow down, to focus on control rather than force. "Pain doesn't mean damage," she said calmly. "Sometimes it means awakening." Night after night she returned. No one knew, no one needed to. Progress came in fractions, an extra second of balance, a slightly stronger contraction. Ethan began to feel muscles respond that had felt dead for over a year. Hope returned cautiously, like an animal testing unsafe ground. One evening, as Ethan struggled through a particularly difficult exercise, frustration finally broke through. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, breathless and angry. "You don't owe me anything." Maya paused, then sat across from him. The hum of the building filled the silence. "Because I know what it's like when your life collapses and the people in charge choose profit over people," she said. "I worked at a rehabilitation center that looked impressive from the outside. Inside, patients were rushed, treatments shortened, outcomes falsified. When I spoke up, I lost everything: my job, my reputation, my future." Ethan listened, stunned. "And you never went back?" "I tried," she replied. "Doors closed quietly, so I took work where no one asked questions." She looked at his legs again, not with pity, but recognition. But I never stopped being who I was. Their sessions grew more intense. Maya pushed him where doctors had hesitated, not recklessly, but fearlessly. She demanded consistency, no excuses. When Ethan failed, she didn't comfort him. She reset him. When he succeeded, she didn't celebrate. She moved on to the next challenge. Weeks passed. Ethan's body changed subtly, then noticeably. His posture improved. His legs responded faster. One night, supported only by parallel bars, he stood longer than ever before. His arms trembled. Tears blurred his vision. Maya counted silently, her eyes steady. When his legs finally gave out, he collapsed into the chair, laughing through sobs. "I did it," he whispered, almost afraid to say it out loud. "You're doing it," Maya corrected gently. The breakthrough came on a quiet night when the building's power briefly flickered. In the dim emergency lighting, Ethan stood up without realizing it. Unsupported, unprompted. He froze, afraid to move, afraid the moment would disappear if he breathed too loudly. Maya stepped back instinctively, giving him space. "Stay with it," she said softly. "Trust your body." He took a step. Then another, unsteady, imperfect, but real. When he finally sat down, his face was wet with tears he didn't bother hiding. The next morning, the boardroom filled early. Executives whispered, expecting another routine meeting led by a man they'd quietly begun to replace in their minds. When the doors opened, Ethan walked in. No wheelchair. Gasps rippled through the room. He moved slowly, deliberately, but with unmistakable strength. He took his seat at the head of the table, standing for a moment longer than necessary, letting the reality settle. "I won't take much time," he said. "I've learned something important these past months. Recovery doesn't come from status. It comes from people who refuse to give up on others." Later that day, Maya was summoned to the executive floor. She stood awkwardly, still in her uniform, unsure why she was there. Ethan met her halfway, extending a hand, not to help her up, but in respect. He offered her a leadership role, overseeing a new rehabilitation initiative within the company. Full authority, full transparency, the resources she'd been denied before. Maya listened, expression calm. Then she nodded. "I'll accept," she said simply. As she left the boardroom, employees watched in silence, finally understanding that miracles don't always arrive wearing white coats or carrying titles. Sometimes they arrive quietly, carrying a broom, waiting for someone brave enough to believe again.